All right. Hello, everyone. Good evening, and welcome back to a new week of our conversational English classes. I hope you all had a good weekend and are ready to dive into our new topic. For the past few weeks, we have built a strong foundation, learning all basic rules for starting and maintaining a conversation. We talked about being friendly, making introductions, and even ending a chat gracefully. Now we are going to take all that knowledge and apply it to a very specific and very important skill, which is small talk. Okay, that is we are going to focus on small talk for our upcoming sessions. So, what is a small talk? Well, it's really just a short, light conversation on everyday topic. You can think of it as the friendly chatter you have with someone while waiting in a line at the coffee shop or before a class starts. So a small talk is the bridge that helps you connect with someone and makes everyone feel comfortable before you move on to maybe a serious topic. So it's not just a way to fill silence, it's a way to build a connection. Over the next few sessions, we're going to learn how to master this skill. We will talk about how and what makes for a good small talk, how to start a conversation, and how to keep it going smoothly. So by the end of this series, you will feel much more confident. I hope so, and of course, much more comfortable having these short, friendly chats with anyone. Okay, let's get started immediately. Of course, it's very important that we understand what a small talk is. Now, we've all heard the term, right? But let's really think about what it is and why it's so important. Small talk is essentially a light and informal conversation. It is not about heavy or serious topics like politics or maybe personal problems. It is about simple everyday things like the weather, your weekend plans, or a class you're taking. The key is that the conversation is low pressure and of course it is easy for everyone to join. Okay? Now the purpose of small talk is multifaceted. For one, it is used to pass the time. Imagine you are in a long queue waiting for a ride or for a class to start. A little bit of small talk can make the time feel like it's going by faster. So it's also used to prevent awkward silence. When you meet a new person, the conversation can get a little quiet. So, small talk is the perfect way to fill that silence and make everyone feel more at ease. And most importantly, small talk is used to build rapport. Excuse me. Yeah, it is used to build rapport. So, rapport is it is a feeling of friendly connection and trust between two people. Excuse me. Sorry for that. Again, when it comes to building a rapport, if you're not familiar with rapport, this one, the word, let me write it down for you. Rapport. Rapport is a feeling of friendly connection and trust between two people. Let's just say trust between two people or connection or trust between two people. That is what we call rapport. Okay? So you try to build that, and you can do that by using small talk. Okay? So small talk is the perfect way to fill that silence and make everyone feel more at ease, of course, to build rapport. It is the first step to building that particular connection that you need. So think back to our dialogues in our previous meetings or sessions in the food stall dialogue, if you still remember that one. There was Jake and Anne, right? Jake and Anne started a small talk conversation about the line for jacket potatoes. Now, it was a simple topic, but it led to them introducing themselves and building a rapport. The same thing happened in our workplace dialogue, if you can remember it, or if you can recall it, when the two people said good morning and asked about their weekend. It was a way to warm up the conversation before they started their meeting. So this simple exchange builds a positive relationship. Okay? Now, even our casual catch up dialogue, starting with, hey, what's up? Or something like that, it is a form of small talk. Okay? It's an easy way to check in with someone without a lot of pressure. So, small talk isn't just meaningless chatter, it has a clear purpose. Of course, to warm up with each other, with your other with the person you are talking to or you're conversing to. It makes us feel more comfortable with each other and it builds a foundation for a stronger connection. Now that we understand why it is so important, in our next session, we will discuss some specific topics you can use for small talk. Not next session, but next slide. I'm sorry. All right. Small talk tips. Wait for a moment. Yeah. Let's talk about the tips first before the topics, okay? Now, so we just finished talking about what small talk is. I hope everyone understand it. Again, it is a light-hearted and informal conversation, which usually you do it to warm your to connect with the other person. Okay, so we recognize its importance for building rapport or connection or trust between the other person. Now let's get into the practical side of things. How do we actually do small talk well? Well, I have a few key tips for you today. First, and this is the big one, you ask open-ended question. Okay, this is a direct call back um, to my point in one of our previous meetings, which is to show interest in the other person. An open-ended question is one that can't be answered with a simple yes or no. For example, instead of asking, "Did you have a good weekend?" I'm gonna ask you that. Of course, you can answer yes or no, which can easily end the conversation. I can try asking instead an open-ended question. Say, for instance, what did you do over the weekend? Okay, so you cannot answer that by saying yes or no. You have to elaborate. You have to tell me what did you do over the weekend. So that's an example of an open-ended question. It is not. It is opposite to close-ended question, which is our yes or no answers. Okay, close-ended because you can just say yes without really have to necessarily explain much about the details. So that's a close ended. But here in small talk tips, as much as possible, we try to connect with other people by using open ended questions. This gives the other person a chance to share a detail or a story about themselves, which of course keeps the conversation flowing. Okay? Now, it's a great way to signal that you are genuinely interested in what they have to say. Second, you have to listen carefully, of course. This is another rule we have already learned. Uh, we should practice active listening. So when someone is talking, practice active listening by giving a simple nod or a brief reply like I see or oh wow, just for them to know that you are really listening to them. So people can always tell when you are really listening, and it makes them feel validated or feel valued because you are being attentive to what they are saying, and of course that's what they wanted, for you to be attentive of what they are saying. Now when they feel heard, they will want to keep talking to you, which makes your job of making small talk so much easier. Okay? Third, go in with positive mindset. Now, small talk shouldn't feel like a chore, just like our rule number 10. I forgot to, yeah, not rule number 10, but yeah, it is just like our one of the main topics that I've provided in our previous sessions. So this is to stay positive and confident approach. So you try to approach the conversation with the idea that you might learn something new or be entertained by the chat. Okay, stay teachable. This positive attitude will come through in your tone and in your body language. You try to to present yourself as an approachable one so that the other person or the person you're conversing to would want to talk to you. Okay? They wouldn't hesitate because you are not closed off. You are presenting yourself in an open body. We're using an open body language, meaning that you are trying to really show that side of a positive positive person that the other person is talking to. So you make yourself more approachable, and of course make your conversation more enjoyable. And finally, two tips go hand in hand. That is to provide details or share information and avoid conversation killers. Now, a conversation killer, let me just put it down here. For a moment. A conversation killer is anything that stops the flow of the chat. Again, it is anything that stops the flow of the chat. Okay? The most common one is a one-word answer. For example, one-word answer like yes or no, or if not yes or no, if someone asks you, for example, how was your weekend? Don't just say it was good. That's a conversation killer. Instead, share a little detail like it was great. I went to the beach with my family, and we ate a lot of good food. This makes a conversation more interesting and it gives the other person something to respond to because you've provided a lot of details. They can tap into what you've mentioned about the beach, about your family, about the food that you ate. So there's multiple options that your listener or the one you're conversing to can tap on so that the conversation would go longer. This other conversation killers to avoid also are changing the topic too fast, okay, or checking your phone while someone's talking to you, which is of course, if I may say, it would make I would find it rude if the person I am talking to is checking their phone, showing, because they are clearly not showing any interest to me while I'm talking. So as much as possible, if not totally, consistent eye contact, we can do some eye contacts with the person we are talking to. We try to acknowledge what they're saying by, as I've mentioned a while ago, by nodding or by saying "I see," or just short reactions, so that they are, how do you call it? They are assured. They are given assurance that you are listening to them. Okay, these things signal that you aren't listening and make the other person feel in importance. These conversation killers. So as much as possible, again, we avoid conversation killers. All right. So by keeping these tips in mind, you can turn a potentially awkward silence into a friendly and natural conversation. Okay. All right. Let's move on to some small talk topics that you can tap into. You might want to start your conversations with these topics, but these are not only the conversations that you can tap into. Okay, these are just some of the many suggestions that I can provide. Okay, all right. Now, of course, the next logical question after understanding what small talk is, as well as the tips, is what do I talk about? All right. So these are our small talk topics. The topics on this list are perfect because they are all light, easy, and not personal. Depending on how you present your message in the conversation, or what you're saying in your conversation, your dialogue, basically. So they are what we call safe topics. We can group them into a few categories. First, we have topics that are personal, but not too personal. We have weekend plans, food, food, restaurants or cooking, hobbies, and music or podcasts. Okay, these are the first ones. All right. Now, these are great because they allow you to share a little bit about yourself and learn a little about the other person. You can easily start a chat by asking any interesting plans for the weekend, or what's a good restaurant you've tried lately. Okay? Next, we have a more general observational topics. Let me put it here. Okay? These include entertainment like TV shows, movies, or books, sports, the climate, and trends. Okay? These are for a moment. Okay. These are more general observational topics. These are the things that this one, let me highlight it. These are the things that most people have some opinion on or they know about. You can use these to start a chat based on your surroundings. Um, for example, you can say, "This weather has been so hot lately, huh?" This simple sentence, which is part of our keep it simple and natural rule number one, which was something that I've mentioned in our previous meetings. It is a great way to start a conversation about the climate. Okay, let me put it here. You can say, how do I say it? Yeah, for a moment. This, what did I mention? This weather has been, oh no, for a moment. Sorry for that. This weather has been so hot lately. Huh. Okay, this is an example of a conversation starter, no? To achieve that small talk that you wanted when it comes to this particular topic. And finally, we have travel or their local favorites, no? Topics that are about shared experiences. This is a fantastic way to connect with someone from a different place or someone new to your area. You can ask, where's a good place to visit for a quick getaway, or what is your favorite? For a moment, let me just resize this one. Okay, all good. So, what did I mention? You can ask, when it comes to this one, travel or their local favorites. When it comes to travel, you can ask this question. Let me highlight it for you. Where's a good place to visit for a quick getaway? Where's a good place to visit for a quick getaway? Okay? Alright, let me resize it for a moment. Okay. You can say that, or maybe what's your favorite local food? Here for our local favorites. So these questions help you show interest and can lead to a deeper conversation. The most important thing to remember is to choose a topic among all these, or not only these are your options. You can also find another ones, but these are just some of the most common topics that you can tap into. Okay, you can choose a topic that is positive, a topic that is neutral and easy for the other person to answer. So having a list like this can make a small talk feel a lot less scary because you always have something to talk about. We'll practice putting all these topics into action in our next activity. But before that, of course, now that we've understand there are many topics that we can use for small talk, there are also topics that we should avoid. Okay? Because a very important part of building rapport with the other person is knowing where the boundaries are. We have to be mindful of topics that might be considered too personal or too controversial. The first rule of thumb is to steer clear of anything that feels like prying. You ask about money or salaries, for example. It is a big one to avoid. It can feel very intrusive and uncomfortable for someone to talk about their income. Similarly, topics about personal relationships, they are private matters. It's not our place to ask someone about their dating life, their marriage, or their breakups when we don't know them well, especially if it's a stranger. But I don't know if how you, not a stranger, maybe an acquaintance, not totally close to you, but you know them. Okay? It's not our place to ask about their personal relationships. We should also avoid heavy topics that can bring down the mood, like health issues or negative news or tragedies. They are usually too sensitive for a light, informal conversation. These conversations can get very heavy very quickly, which is the opposite of what we want for a small talk. We want to keep the mood friendly and positive. A few more topics on this list are important because they can easily lead to conflict or offense, just like religion. Religion is a topic that people have very different and very personal beliefs about, and bringing it up can quickly lead to an uncomfortable debate. So it's best to stick to neutral topics instead, especially if you are just new to talking to the other person. Okay? Also, it's a good practice to avoid commenting about uh, one's physical appearance. Even if you think it's a compliment, you might make someone feel self conscious or uncomfortable. We don't know. Okay? And finally, a very important boundary is to stay away. Sorry. Oh, okay. A very important boundary is to stay away from stereotypes or jokes about race, gender, or culture. This is a clear no in any conversation, especially with people you don't know well. This goes back to what we try to avoid, what we try to really go on, fight for, which is to be mindful of cultural differences. And of course, a general rule about being respectful. Okay? The main point here is that we should always be respectful. Yeah, we should always be respectful. And these are a clear no topics as much as possible. Especially if it's with someone you are not totally close to, or if it's someone that even if you're close to that person, if they do not try to open this topic to you, do not open it yourself. Okay? All right. Okay. All right. We've done with the small talk topics, everyone. Small talk conversations, the introduction on it. We talk about what small talk is and why it's so useful. Now let's focus on the first part of the process of small talk. Actually, there are three: small talk initiation, maintaining or carrying, small talk ending. I will be providing you some phrases for these different parts of small talk. But of course, we are going to start today with small talk initiation. This is all about how to get a conversation started with someone in a natural and friendly way. Okay? All right. Okay. Are you ready, everyone, to start with the first few phrases for small talk initiation? Okay? All right. I guess everyone's ready. Let's start with the first two phrases, which is under greeting. Now, this we have good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, and how are you. For good morning, or good afternoon, and good evening, this is a phrase that is generally polite and works in almost any situation. It is a bit more formal than a casual mention of hi, but it is still very common and effective. Its simplicity is its greatest strength. So by saying good morning, for example, you're doing three key things at once. You are acknowledging the other person, you are establishing a polite and respectful tone, and you are inviting them to respond. Okay? The beauty of this greeting is that it is time specific, and it works with anyone from a close friend to a complete stranger. So you just adjust the phrase to the time of the day. Of course, you would say good morning to your professor when you arrive for your 8 a.m. class, and you would say good afternoon to the person at the cashier in the late afternoon. So you just adapt to the setting. Okay? A formal greeting like this is perfectly suited for more formal settings, such as a workplace or an official event. But you can also do this, or you can also mention this in small talks, in informal conversations. Okay? All right. So, for example, if you are a new intern and you see your boss for the first time in the morning, Take note, it's in the morning. A friendly good morning is the ideal way to start an interaction. It is respectful. It it is respectful without you being overly stiff. It tells them, I see you and I am being polite. Okay? Beyond its formal uses, good morning can also be used in more casual settings to start a conversation from a respectful place. Imagine you are waiting in line for a bus or any kind of transportation vehicle for a moment, or any kind of transportation vehicle, and you are standing next to someone. You can simply say good morning to them. Okay, this opens the door for them to, maybe they would want to respond, or they would provide a potential conversation. So it's a great low pressure way to break the ice without feeling awkward to the other person. Okay, we should be friendly and approachable if we wanted to. Saying good morning with a smile and a warm tone is a powerful combination that tells the other person that you are open to a friendly chat. This shows that the words you use are just one part of the equation. Your body language and tone of voice are just as important. Okay? All right. The phrases can also be modified to become more personal. You can add a person's name to make the greeting feel more targeted and friendly. For example, let me highlight it. This one. You'll say, good morning, Mark. Something like that. That is a bit warmer than just good morning, right? If there's your name, it would feel like personalized, diba? All right, because your name is included in the greeting. Good morning, Mark. So it's specifically mentioned to you only. So you can also follow it up with a simple question to get the conversation going. For example, good morning, Mark. Are you in the line for coffee too? Are you in the line for coffee too? So you try to start a conversation after the greeting. Okay? This is a great way to move from a simple greeting to a light, informal conversation, which is the whole point of small talk. So by having this phrase in your mind, you have a safe and respectful way to start a conversation in almost any situation, which is a great tool to have in your conversational toolkit. Next phrase is how are you? Now, this phrase is super common and it is a staple of everyday things. When you ask, how are you? You are not really asking for a detailed personal update on someone's life, especially in a small talk context. You are simply showing that you acknowledge their presence and that you care enough to ask about their well-being. It is a conversational equivalent for a quick hello. So the expected response is usually a short, polite answer like I'm doing well, thank you, and you, something like that. Or maybe I'm fine, thanks, and you. So expected responses like that. So this keeps the conversation light and friendly, which is exactly what we want to do in small talk. So the key to using this phrase correctly is to understand its purpose. In small talk, how are you is not an invitation for a deep emotional conversation. It's an invitation to a light and friendly exchange that builds rapport. For example, if you remember our workplace dialogue, the conversation starts with a simple good morning, followed by how was your weekend? The person replies she replied with pretty relaxing thanks, which is the expected short and polite answer. They don't go into details about a family drama or a difficult personal situation because that is heavy. That would be a conversation killer and would be too heavy for a light, friendly chat. This is why having a list of small topics is so useful. It reminds us to keep the conversation light and positive. Now, this phrase is also a great way to show that you are actively listening and interested in the other person. Because by asking how are you, you are putting the focus on the other person, giving them a chance to speak about themselves. So it's a perfect way to initiate a conversation and it's a great tool to have ready in your mind. Okay, how are you? Just to remember to use a warm and friendly tone when you ask it, of course. In everything that we say, as much as possible, we align it with a tone that we intend to. Here in how are you, we try to warm up with other person, so we try to incorporate or pair it with a tone that is warm and friendly. So the sincerity of your voice and your facial expression are just as important as the words themselves. Now, the phrase, how are you? It is simple, it is versatile, and when used correctly, a powerful way to initiate and build a positive connection with someone is really a possibility. Okay. All right. Let's keep going with our small talk initiation phrases. Okay. Still with greeting. Let's have the first one. Hey Mark, it's good to see you. So I just provided Mark, but you can, of course, you will say the name of the other person you're talking to here. So let me just um, um, edit this one so that you are not confused. Hey, and then a name. Just like what I've mentioned earlier. Hey Mark, it's good to see you. This phrase is a fantastic one for when you already know the person's name. It is a step up from a general hi or hello because it is personalized because you mentioned the name of the other person. And that personalization makes a huge difference. Using someone's name is one of the most powerful things you can do in a conversation. It immediately signals that you remember them, that you value them, and that they are important to you. So it creates a feeling of warmth and friendliness that general greeting can quite match. Okay, let's try to break down the components of this phrase. Hey, your name. I'm just gonna use Mark. Okay. Hey, Mark. It's good to see you. First, we have hey. This is a much more informal greeting than hello. If you remember it correctly with one of our previous meetings, it is perfectly suited for your classmates, for your colleagues, for the people you see regularly. You wouldn't say hey to a company CEO or your boss you're meeting for the first time, but you would definitely say it to a classmate you see in the hallway every day. So this informal tone is what makes the greeting feel so natural and feel so low pressure. Next, we have to use the person's name. As I've mentioned, I provided Mark earlier. As we just discussed, using their name makes the greeting feel warm and personal to them. Okay? It shows that you remember them. And in this busy world, it can make a person feel seen and valued. So this directly links to our rule number 4, which is show interest in the other person. In one of our previous meetings, there are different rules that I've provided. So remembering and using their name is fundamental. Is a fundamental way to show that interest that you have. And finally, we have the phrase, it's good to see you. Okay, this is the part of the phrase that conveys a positive emotion about the encounter. You're telling them that you are genuinely happy to have crossed paths with them. So this is just a powerful way to reinforce a positive connection. Okay? All right. Phrase number 2. We have, hey, Ken, nice or pleasure to meet you. So I still provided the name. Let me just edit this one. Okay, so name and then nice or pleasure to meet you. This phrase is a perfect way to respond when you are being introduced to someone new. It is a polite and friendly way to acknowledge the introduction and start a conversation with the other person. Let me put it here for number 2. Second phrase. Again, this is a perfect way to respond when you are being introduced to someone new. Okay, this is for an introduction, getting to know each other. For number 2 or second phrase, it is polite and friendly way to acknowledge the introduction and to start a conversation with a person you have never met before. So this phrase serves as a bridge from the introduction to the beginning of the conversation. Okay, let's try to break down this phrase. It starts with the person's name. I've mentioned earlier, Ken. This is a key part of the phrase because it immediately signals that you are paying attention to the introduction and that you have remembered the person's name. This makes them feel respected and valued right from the start. It is a fundamental part of our rule to introduce ourselves clearly because it shows you're taking the introduction seriously. So after the name, you say nice or pleasure to meet you. Both nice and pleasure work here, depending. It only depends on you which one you will use in almost any situation. From meeting a classmate for the first time to meeting a friend in a casual get together, you can use nice or pleasure to meet you. Of course, you'll say their name as much as possible. The word pleasure, on the other hand, it is a bit more formal. Okay, that's why there is option nice or pleasure. So you might use it in a more professional setting. such as at networking event or a meeting with a new colleague. So nice is more informal, pleasure is formal. Let me highlight it one. Nice, you can use that in informal settings. Okay. For pleasure, formal settings. Okay. Usually. That is usually. But you can still use in informal settings pleasure as well as nice in formal settings. But as much as possible, we try to use this. We try to use nice in informal, pleasure to formal. Okay? Alright. Okay. Just like with the other phrases, the tone and the body language you use are just as important as the words themselves. Again, let me highlight that one for you. Tone and body is just as important. How do you call that? It is just as important as the words themselves. Okay? Take note of this one. Note, tone and body is just as important as the words themselves. Okay, you should say this phrase with a sincere smile and friendly eye contact. No, you can also follow it up with a light, open-ended question to keep the conversation going. Okay, all right. Next phrases we have here. Hi, I don't think we've met. My name is. Then you provide your name. This is a polite and clear way to introduce yourself if you don't recognize someone. It's straightforward and friendly, which makes it perfect for breaking the ice. This phrase, it is an excellent example of proactive communication. Instead of waiting for someone to talk to you, you are taking the initiative to start the conversation. So this shows confidence and approachability. You are being friendly and approachable. The phrase itself, it is a two-part statement. So the first part is, hi, I don't think we've met. This is a polite and low-pressure way to start. So it states a fact that you haven't been introduced and leaves no room for awkward confusion. This is much better than just trying to guess if you know the other person or not. The second part is, my name is, which is the crucial introduction. This is where you give your name and invite them to do the same. You can also add a small detail to your introduction to make it more engaging and give them something to respond to, which is a key part of our small talk tips. For example, instead of just saying, hi, I'm Paolo, you can just say, hi, I'm Paolo and I'm in the English class as well. Okay? Give just a little detail. This gives the other person a piece of information to use to continue the conversation that you are having. Okay? We can see this in action in our at school orientation dialogue where Lara initiates a conversation with Jonas by saying, hi, I think we are in the same course. I'm Lara. If you remember the conversation last week, this is a perfect example of a polite and clear way to introduce yourself. So she states a potential connection, which is, I think we are in the same course, and then introduces herself directly. This is a very effective and friendly way to break the ice and start a conversation with a new person. Okay? Now, this phrase, hi, I don't think we've met. My name is. This is a powerful tool because it is so versatile. You can use it in a variety of settings where you are likely to meet new people, such as school, a job fair, a party, or a conference. It is a safe and respectful way to start a conversation, basically. So, especially with someone you don't know, and it shows that you are confident and friendly and a friendly communicator. So it's a great way to put yourself out there and start building new connections. Okay? Next phrase, hi, are you from? Aren't you? So this is a phrase that you can use to connect with someone if you think you recognize them from somewhere. It is informal and a great way to find something in common quickly. Okay, just be ready if they say no. This phrase is all about making a guess, but a friendly and low pressure one. The power of this phrase is that it immediately creates a sense of connection. So by asking if they are from a certain place or a certain group, you are saying that you have some sort of shared history or experience, even if it's a very small one. So this can be a great way to break the ice and move into a light and friendly conversation. For example, if you're at school event and you think you remember someone from a club meeting, you can approach them and say, hi, Hi, are you from English Club, aren't you? This is a great way to start a conversation that is based on a potential shared interest. However, it is also very important, everyone, to use this phrase with care. The key is just to make it a low risk question. You don't want to make an assumption about something that might be private or personal to the other person. So it's much safer to ask about a school, about a club or hobby than it is to ask about something more personal. The phrase "aren't you?" this one at the end, it makes the question more of a friendly guess than a direct statement, which is a great way to soften the blow if you are wrong. And if they say no, you can just laugh it off and, of course, say, "Oh, I'm sorry, you just look familiar," something like that. Okay? Then, of course, you can just introduce yourself and start a conversation from there if you wanted to. So, it is good for a confident and friendly communicator. It shows that you are paying attention to the people around you and that you are proactive in building connections because you started a conversation. You risk trying opening a conversation. So it is a great way to find something in common quickly and move into a light informal conversation. Okay? So this is just a great tool to have ready for those moments when you think you might know someone from somewhere. All right. Moving on to another set of phrases. We have Okay, we're done with the greetings. Again, there are 6 greetings that were mentioned. First phrase, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Second, how are you? Third, hey, name. You mentioned their name and it's good to see you. Fourth, you mentioned the name and then nice to meet you or pleasure to meet you. Fifth, hi, I don't think we've met. My name is, of course, you provide your name. And lastly, sixth, hi, are you from somewhere? And then aren't you? Okay? We move on to compliments. All right. We start with this phrase. That's such an interesting point. So this phrase is a fantastic tool for active listening and showing genuine engagement during a discussion. When someone says something insightful or thought provoking, this is the perfect way to acknowledge their contribution and show them that you were truly listening. It's a step up from just nodding your head or saying, aha. So it's an active way to participate in the conversation and validate the other person's ideas, which is, of course, a key part of building rapport. It shows them that their thoughts matter and that their contribution is appreciated by you. So the power of this phrase, it lies in its neutrality and positivity. So when you say that's such an interesting point, you are not necessarily saying that you have to agree with them. You are simply acknowledging that their idea is worthy of consideration. So this is just a crucial distinction, especially in a small talk setting where we went and want to avoid controversial topics. So by using this phrase, you can connect with someone on an intellectual level without really getting into a deep debate or argument. So it's a way to keep the conversation light and friendly while still showing that you are engaged. Okay? You can also use variations of this phrase to fit the situation. For example, sorry. For example, you can say that's a great perspective or I've never thought of it that way before. So this phrase, it is also a great way to keep the conversation going. It is an open door for you to ask a follow-up question, which ties back to our tip about asking open-ended questions. For example, you can say, that's such an interesting point. What led you to that idea? So this shows that you are not only listening to them, but that you are also curious and want to learn more from them. It encourages the other person to continue sharing their thoughts, which makes the conversation more dynamic and engaging. So this is a much better way to continue a conversation than just saying, "Oh, okay," and moving on to another topic. Now, the key to using this phrase effectively, okay, is sincerity. So the phrase should be said with a genuine tone of curiosity and interest. So if you say it in a monotone voice, monotone voice, like a robotic voice, like it's just somewhere like this, okay, it can sound insincere and hollow. So the person you are talking to will be able to tell if you are genuinely interested or not, if you are genuinely complimenting them or not. Remember, the goal of small talk is to build a genuine connection, and this phrase is a perfect way to do that. So it's a great way to make someone feel heard and valued, which is a key part of being a good communicator. Next, you did a great job on that project. Now, this phrase is perfect for a work or school setting. It acknowledges a person's effort and success in a specific task, which is a fantastic way to build rapport in a professional environment. This is a very specific form of praise that shows you are paying attention to the person's work and that you appreciate their contribution. It is a positive, professional, and friendly all at the same time. Okay? The power of this phrase lies in its specificity. So it is focusing more on being specific instead of just saying you are a good worker, which is a very general statement, like what makes me a good worker. So you are acknowledging a specific task or project that they worked on here. You can say, instead of saying you are a good worker, you can say like this: you did a great job on that project. What kind of project? You can specify what kind of project in this conversation. So this shows that you are paying attention to the details and that your praise is genuine. This is a great way to build a positive and respectful relationship with a colleague or classmate. For example, if you are a student and your classmate gave a great presentation, you can say them to after class, you did a great job on that presentation. So this is just a simple but powerful way to acknowledge their effort and success. Okay? This phrase is also it also helps to build a positive and friendly atmosphere in a professional setting. So small talk in a professional environment can sometimes be a bit stiff and formal. So by using a phrase like this, you are adding human element to the conversation. You are showing that you see the person not just as a colleague or a classmate, but as a person whose hard work and success you appreciate. This is just a great way to make the person feel valued and to build a positive and friendly relationship with them. It also make you seem more approachable and more friendly, which is a great quality to have in any professional setting. Just like with our phrases, other phrases, the sincerity of this phrase is key. It's always important that we are sincere to what we say. The praise should be genuine, especially when we are complimenting with someone. It should be genuine, it should be sincere, and it should be delivered with a warm and friendly tone. So if you don't mean it, it can come across as insincere and fake to the other person, which is the exact opposite of what we wanted to achieve. So make sure you are genuinely impressed with the other person's work before you use this phrase. So when used correctly, this particular phrase, when used correctly, this phrase is a powerful way to build a positive and professional relationship with someone. It shows that you are a positive and supportive person, which are great qualities to have in any environment. Okay? Again, our first few phrases to use to compliment someone. That's such an interesting point, and you did a great job on that project. All right, continuing still with compliment. Third, that was a really nice presentation you did earlier. Now, this phrase, it is a fantastic and specific way to offer praise after a shared experience. Presentations can be nerve-wracking, whether you are in a classroom, giving a report, or at a work meeting, presenting a new idea. When you approach someone afterward and offer a compliment, you're doing more than just being polite. You are acknowledging their effort, you're acknowledging their courage, you're acknowledging their hard work. This makes the person feel seen and feel valued, which is the whole point of small talk, no? To build a genuine connection, to build rapport. Now, the power of this phrase, it lies in its sincerity and being specific. It's not a generic, you're a great person or something like that. It is a specific praise about a recent shared experience. We can break this phrase down into a few key parts. Now, the first part is that was a really nice presentation. Okay? This is the core compliment. The words really nice, okay, let me highlight that one. Really nice are a great simple way to express your positive feelings. You can also use other adjectives to adjust the compliment to the situation, like informative, really informative, really interesting, or really well organized. For example, you can say that was, as mentioned earlier, as I've mentioned a while ago, that was a really organized presentation, or I really enjoyed your talk. This makes the praise feel even more genuine and sincere. Okay? Now, the second part, you did earlier. Okay, this one. This is important because it makes the compliment timely and relevant. It shows that you are talking about a specific event that just happened, which makes the praise feel more immediate. The phrase is also a great way to start a conversation. You can follow it up with a specific open-ended question to keep the conversation going and to show that your interest is genuine. For example, you can say, that was a really nice presentation you did earlier. How long did it take you to prepare for it? Something like that. This gives them a chance to share more about their experience and to engage in deeper conversations, which is a great way to move from a small talk to a more meaningful chat. Now, maybe in a meeting, after someone gives, a coworker gives a presentation, you can use this phrase to connect with them. Okay? For example, you can say, that was a really nice presentation you did earlier. I like the part about how the project was going, or was progressing. Was that difficult to research or do something like that? So this not only compliments them on their work, but also shows that you were paying attention to the details of their presentation. This is a great way to turn a shared meeting experience into a chance for a new friendship. Let me just check my slide quickly. Okay. All right, all good. Let me continue. So again, just like with any other phrases, you should always be sincere with saying this phrase. Okay? The key to using this phrase effectively is sincerity. Always be sincere with what you say. The praise should be genuine and it should be delivered with a warm and friendly tone. If you are not sincere, the person you are talking to will be able to tell, and the compliment will fall flat. So make sure you genuinely mean it when you say it. So when used correctly, this phrase is a powerful way to make someone feel seen and valued, and it is a great tool to have in your conversational toolkit. Next, and I think, yeah, this is the fourth compliment phrase. You handled that situation very well. This phrase is perfect for when someone has navigated a challenging situation with grace or with skill. It is a powerful way to acknowledge that that person's abilities, and it can lead to a brief positive exchange. So this is just a great tool for building rapport in a work or academic setting, as it shows that you respect and admire the person's skills and abilities. The power of this phrase, it lies in its acknowledgement of a difficult situation. It is easy to offer praise after a success, like a good presentation, but it takes a higher level of emotional intelligence and social awareness to acknowledge when someone has handled a challenging situation well. This phrase is a way of saying, I saw what you just went through and I am impressed by how you handled it. It is a great way to make someone feel seen, feel valued, and feel respected. Now, the phrase can be used in a variety of settings. For example, if you're working on a group project with a classmate and there is a conflict, you can say to your classmate afterward, you handled that situation very well or really well. I was impressed by how you stayed calm. This not only compliments them on their skill, but it also shows them that you were paying attention to the details of the situation, which is, it can be a great way to build a positive and respectful relationship with your classmate, and it can also help to de-escalate a difficult situation. Similarly, in a work setting, if a colleague has to deal with a difficult client, you can say to them afterward, you handled that situation really well. I was impressed by how you stayed so calm and professional. This is just a great way to show that you are a supportive and observant colleague, and it can help to build a positive and friendly atmosphere in the workplace. This phrase, it is a great way to show that you respect the person's skills and abilities, and it can lead to a more meaningful conversation about how they handled the situation. This is just a great way to move from a light informal conversation to a more in-depth and respectful chat. Okay? So the key to using this phrase effectively is sincerity. The praise should be genuine and it should be delivered with a warm and friendly tone. If you don't mean it, the person you are talking to will be able to tell, and the compliment will fall flat. So make sure you genuinely mean it when you say it. So when used correctly, this phrase is so powerful, no? It is a powerful way to build a positive and professional relationship with someone. And it shows that you are a supportive and appreciative person. Okay? All right. This is our third and fourth phrases for compliment. And we shall move on to our final two phrases for today's session. And they're compliment still. These are a little different from the ones we've talked about because they focus on not a little different, but still within the compliments. When we give a genuine compliment, it is a great way to make someone feel good, right? And of course, it is a good way to build a stronger connection with the other person or with them. But it's also important to know how to give a compliment correctly, just like what we have discussed so far. Phrases like these four, and these are the last two. So this is what we are going to continue talking about now. Okay? The fifth phrase under compliment is you have such a positive energy. Now, this is a powerful and more personal compliment because it focuses on a person's general demeanor and like general vibe, and it's a way to acknowledge someone's good energy, especially how it makes you feel to be around them. This is just a great tool for creating a friendly and warm atmosphere, but it's also important to remember that it is not a phrase for a first time meeting, as our tip says here. Not tip, but it is when you do this, you should have, or you should use this when you have a bit of rapport already. Like you already build some form of connection with the other person. Okay? It is a compliment for when you have had a few short chats with someone and you are starting to get to know them like a little better. So the power of this phrase, it lies in its sincerity. So when you say to someone you have such a positive energy, you are essentially telling them that you enjoy being around them and that their presence has a positive effect on you. Okay? This is just a very heartfelt compliment that can make someone feel seen and appreciated in a very deep way. So it's a great way to show that you are paying attention to their personality, and that just not just only you are and you are not just only focusing on their words or actions. So it also makes you seem like a more thoughtful and observant person, which are great qualities to have. Now the phrase itself, it is a great way to start a more personal conversation. Like you can follow it up with a light open-ended question to keep the conversation going. For example, you can say, let me type it in here for a moment. For the first phrase, let me just put it to number 1 so that you will be guided accordingly. An example for this, an example for an open-ended question so that the conversation that you are having right now will continue. You can say, you have such a positive energy. What do you do to stay so positive? Okay? You have such... Sorry for that. For a moment. You have such a positive energy. That's our specific compliment, right? This one, you have such a positive energy. You can start with that. And then, of course, you add with an open-ended question, which is, what do you do to stay positive? Okay? This gives them a chance to share a little bit about themselves and their life, which is a great way to build a deeper connection with them. It shows that your compliment is not just a passing comment, but that you are genuinely interested in them as a person. So this is, how do you call that? Adding an open-ended question to keep the conversation going. And it shows that your compliment is not a passing comment. Okay? Now, the key to using this phrase effectively is, of course, as always, I've mentioned it repeatedly already, you make sure that your, how do you call that, your tone, your voice, your body language is aligned with the compliment, which is, of course, it should be genuine and it should be sincere as much as possible. Because the compliment here, you have such a positive energy, it should be delivered with a warm and friendly tone. With a genuine smile, you can do that, and friendly eye contact. So if you don't mean it, the person you are talking to will be able to tell actually. If you don't mean, if you are not sincere with the compliment, if you are not genuine with the compliment, the other person would definitely be able to tell that. Okay? And the compliment will fall flat. It does nothing at all. So make sure you genuinely mean it when you say it. When used correctly, this phrase is a powerful way to make someone feel deeply valued and to build a friendly and positive atmosphere. Okay? All right. So that is our fifth phrase for compliment. So far, we've talked about hi. No, not that. This one. For compliments, we've talked about the phrases including that's such an interesting point. You did a great job on that project. That was a really nice presentation you did earlier. You handled this situation very well. And of course, the recent phrase that we've talked about, you have such a positive energy. So in all these phrases, especially when what we do here is we are complimenting someone, make sure that you say this phrase with a genuine tone. Again, you say this phrase with a genuine tone. Okay? As much as possible. All right. Let's move on to our last phrase for the day. Yay! All right. So, the phrase is that color looks really good on you. What do you notice about the phrase? It is specific, which is good. No, a good practice on complimenting someone is that you specify something about them. It's maybe the way they talk, the way they dress, the way they present themselves. It's very important. It's a good practice to compliment them. With be specific with your compliments. No, it's a good practice that you are being specific with the compliments that you are giving to the other person, because it would add more sincerity, because you give more personal characteristic to your compliment. Okay, it is not too broad, because being too broad with your compliments, it just might sound fake even though you are being genuine. Okay, all right. Now that color looks really good on you. Now this phrase, it is a simple and often well received compliment on a person's appearance. Let me highlight it here for a moment. Number 2, this is more on personal appearance. Okay. Let me resize it. Size it down. Okay. Number 2 or second phrase is more on person's appearance, but it's important to keep it light and focused on something like their clothing or an accessory, because as much as possible, we don't talk about someone's body or someone's physical appearance. Okay? Try to focus more on something that is attached to them, like their clothing or their accessory, as much as possible. Okay? So this is a great way to start a casual interaction, because it is a low risk compliment that is unlikely to make anyone feel uncomfortable. Let me just highlight this one: personal appearance. We focus on clothing or accessory. Okay, so that you will not be able to forget this one. Okay, all right. So this is just a low risk compliment, so that you wouldn't be able to make anyone feel comfortable, because we are talking about personal appearance here. So we try to tone it down. Okay. Now the power of this phrase, it lies in its specificity and its focus. By complimenting someone on a specific color or an item of clothing, you are showing that you are paying attention to their appearance without being overly personal or intrusive. It is just a great way to acknowledge that they have a good sense of style or that they have chosen a color that suits them well. Okay? This is just, everyone, a much better approach than making a more general or personal comment about their physical appearance, which it can be awkward, or if not awkward, worst, it can be offensive to them, as we talked about before. So this phrase is also a great way to start a conversation from a shared experience, because you can use it as a way to transition into a conversation about their clothes, a conversation about their style, or even a store that you both like. For example, you can say, let's start, of course, with a phrase, that color looks really good on you. And then you can try to add, where did you get that shirt? Okay, this gives them a chance to respond and to engage in a light and friendly conversation with you. Okay, gives them the chance to, how do you call that, engage in a light, gives chances to how do you call that, to continue the conversation, to build, let's just say, to build rapport, because this is what's important actually in making small talks with someone. Building rapport is our building rapport is our goal, as always. Okay, and I've been repeating myself, the key to using this particular phrase or the other phrases is, of course, it is on sincerity. Okay, you can use this phrase effectively if you are sincere when saying it. So the compliment, it should be genuine, and it should be delivered with a warm and friendly tone. So you should always be careful to use it only on appropriate occasions. Let me highlight that one, because again, we're talking about physical appearance here, and as much as possible, we do not really try to tap on that. But if you have to, or if you want to, use it in appropriate occasions. Use the compliment in appropriate occasions. If you deem it appropriate, then you can use that. Okay, so for example, it's probably not the best compliment to use in a very formal or professional setting. The color looks really good on you. But in a more casual setting, like a school, like in a coffee shop or a party, it is a great way to start a friendly and casual interaction. So this is good for casual settings or casual conversations, because again, our topic for today, small talk, is under conversational English. Conversational English is also casual conversations or casual English. Okay, so when used correctly here, this phrase, it is a great way to make someone feel good and to build a positive connection with them. All right, are we clear so far? Do we have any questions? Because again, this is the last phrase for today's session. Anyway, I think there's no question so far. Let me just, for a moment. Since we don't have any questions, let's recall the topics that we did today. Again, we are on small talk under conversational English. This is lecture 1 for our series on small talk. We define what small talk is. This is light and informal conversation. We do this to build rapport or connection or trust between the other to the other person. Small talk tips here. You can always read this because I've already provided the discussion on this. Small talk topics, you can also read this one. Controversial topics that you should avoid, or be sensitive to, put boundaries on this. And of course, we started, there are different parts of small talk initiation, maintaining or carrying, small talk ending. We started with small talk initiation. Actually, what we are discussing today is the first part of small talk initiation because there's plenty of them. Okay, we started with greetings. The phrases that under greetings are good morning, good afternoon, good evening, how are you, Hey, name, it's good to see you. Name, nice to meet you or pleasure to meet you. Hi, I don't think we've met. My name is. Hi, you are from, aren't you? And then, of course, aside from greeting, we also tap into compliments, which includes phrases such as "That's such an interesting point." "You did a great job on that project." "That was a really nice presentation you did earlier." "You handled that situation really well." "You have such a positive energy," and "That color really looks good." "That color looks really good on you." And that, everyone, brings us to the end of our session and small talk for today. I know we covered a lot of ground, but I hope you feel like you have a great toolkit to work with. So we started by defining small talk not as pointless chatter but as powerful way to build rapport and make connections with others. We talked about key tips, being friendly and approachable, asking open-ended questions, and many more. The importance of active listening. We also went over a bunch of safe topics to talk about, like movies and weekend plans, and just as importantly, we learned the topics to avoid so we don't accidentally make anyone uncomfortable. And most importantly, we learned that small talk is about being genuine and showing a little interest in the people around you. So it's not about being a perfect conversationalist, it's about being a friendly person who is willing to try. So I encourage you to take these tips and phrases and try them out this week, or maybe tomorrow if you can, because there are so many phrases that I have provided to you today. You can pick one or more than one phrases to use for tomorrow's conversations that you will be having. You can start a small chat with your workmate or maybe a cashier at a store. Just remember to be friendly, to keep it light, and of course, as much as possible, be yourself. And with all these phrases, you should always be sincere with it. Okay? Thank you all so much for your great energy and participation today, everyone. I'll see you next time in our next meeting, of course, which is, again, I've mentioned a while ago, a continuation in our small talk initiation. Goodbye for now and have a great rest of the night ahead. Goodbye.